All right, so now we talked about Disney. Now it's time to talk about some more of the aspects of this industry of the media economics, and there's been some expansion. So this is of when you're creating these conglomerates, you have more of an audience. Um, Things are getting cheaper to make. Things became so it's more profitable for them. It was not just within the company in the country, but it goes outside the borders, all across the planet. This allowed them to, because of the global market now, you have to understand this. Because of the global market, um, they could produce things, and Disney sometimes and other major companies will produce things that they might spend like a ton of money, say, on a movie. And how are we going to get by on that movie if we're spending all that money on it? And how are we going to get? Are we possibly going to have the sales on a domestic level that make it up? It doesn't matter if it does or doesn't now, because yeah, they're going to make a good amount of money on that domestic theater ticket sales, and other kinds of marketing and stuff like that with sales. But then, really, because they've got a global market, they have even more customers. So this is where the real money comes. So they may make their money back, just on domestic, but then they have a whole other global release. So all those other people across the planet, they have an opportunity to buy and take in their stuff that way. So this has really expanded their potential for earnings. Now, over the years, with the internet and this thing called convergence, and we talked about convergence before, with convergence of the cross training and the different mediums of print and broadcast and film and books and so on and so forth, how it's all muddled together. Um, a lot of these more traditional companies, they struggled with digital, struggled with the internet. Those who got it are doing better than ever. Others that didn't went away. Certain things, such as like YouTube, YouTube had more leeway, so some other traditional broadcast things would have, not the advantages of a YouTube with stuff. Um, and it was also trying to figure out how how to get people to pay for certain things online. They figured out different ways because the internet was new, and we've gone through all this before. But it's part of the whole expansion and them getting used to a whole new technology. That's how companies survive. Not if they just refuse to take part in certain things, they're gonna die. Especially with something as big as the internet and the whole aspect of that. Um, so they know they have to acclimate to it, and the ones who are successful do. All right. So now we talk with more of the about the more traditional ABC, NBC, CBS, Universal, the movie companies, stuff like that, and how they work. Now with this whole internet thing, it has totally changed everything because now this internet thing, yes, is gosh darn internet thing created a whole new mega media companies who started doing with more uh, computer stuff, but it's reached out to a whole new level. You talk about your Amazons and Apple and Facebook and Google and Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft was just dealing with computers, but it's gone to a whole other level. Some of this stuff didn't exist. What was Facebook was just the social media thing that, at Harvard, and it became a big to do what it is today. It's one of the biggest companies on the planet on how much money they make, and they sell information, advertising information, stuff like that. And it's kind of shows you the power of information. Um, it has become very powerful. But the problem is, the thing is, how do you keep people coming? Um, and it's compelling narratives. They keep talking compelling narratives, good stories, good things or certain things that will attract people to what you have, and they've done it on a different way. Um, and a lot of times, the people who are creating the things that people are coming back for are the people who are using it. Think about Facebook. They are putting their stuff out. They're saying their things. They have technology now that they can put out there, and people are looking at it and passing it along. And this is letting the advertisers know, hey, we have all these people on. Yeah, you want to advertise here. How do we best advertise to them? That's where we start getting into when we get into the whole them knowing with the computer technology and how to deal with that. Um, so the digital age, you can be small. You can be, and if you've got the right product, or you can get a buzz together and get people out there and put something out that the little person, who has nothing can eventually become bigger. But you have to have something people want to see or take part in or watch or listen to or whatever the case may be. So it gives people an opportunity they never had before, because now they don't need to have all this fancy technology, even though the technology we have now may not consider fancy, but it was not even a thought way back in the day. You didn't have access to that kind of stuff. Now everything is able to create stuff like that for you. So consider yourself very lucky to be where you are, and when time you grew up, because you have a lot of things we didn't have before. So it's take advantage. You have a chance. All right. Now, over the years, we talked about monopolies, antitrusts, and lots of times you'll find that a lot of companies, and this is why these mega companies do have so many different interests, like print and film and broadcast and cable companies and so on and so on and so forth. So this is so what they do is they've got their hand in so many different um, buckets of different things. They they have so many and so many different things that it gives them flexibility, so they don't have to worry about necessarily being a monopoly. They are oligopolies, and we talked about how oligopolies are a handful of companies that own just about so many different things. But they don't own so much that they're considered a monopoly. So that's why they don't own all the television stations. They own a good amount of them, but then they also own some film, and they don't own all of those. And they do own some book publishers, but they don't own all of those. They just own a certain amount. But there's enough cross promotion going on. There's enough companies out there. There's enough media out there that they're still allowed to. It still falls within the legal parameters, so they can do that. Now, the antitrust laws that we have here, and it's not really recognized across the globe. Other countries don't necessarily have the monopoly laws, so that's why you'll see sometimes That's why employees have gone off to the other outsourcing of employees to other places, producing things because it's cheaper there. But they don't have those laws in other countries, so that also kind of adds to their profile as well when you're dealing with these media companies. Now, with all of this, with the companies, the media companies, be promoting so much, creating so much, a handful of companies creating as much as they are, we're seeing a concept called cultural imperialism. And because they do have such a reach, you're finding that some things that have become more traditional in other countries, part of their culture, part of what they create, their movies, their television, their art, their books, their stories, whatever the case may be, are kind of getting lost in the shuffle of the big produced things that everybody knows and everybody wants to see. So this can be a problem because there's some wonderful things out there that are being created. and they're getting lost in the shuffle. They're getting lost in the shuffle of the big blockbusters that everybody wants to see, and they have to go and hear or listen or whatever the case may be. Um, so that's part of the problem. We have it's always been an issue with the business world. Where you look at McDonald's, you can go to McDonald's in China, and all over in Japan and all that. But that's the same concept. But is really good produced, well made cultural content not getting out because of the stuff that these mega companies can create because they have that reach. Now, this is something we have to think about, and so it's okay to like this stuff, but keep an eye out on stuff outside of our little bubble. That's part of what kind of like I was telling you about the horizon expansion thing. This is another aspect that there can be really great things to watch and listen to and take part in. You just got to keep your eyes and ears open. That's another aspect of this too, because we're a global community, and we don't have to just necessarily take in the big people, the big media conglomerate stuff. There are other stuff out there that can give you a great deal of joy and enjoyment and do some real good. So keep an eye out for that too. That's another reason why I do the horizon expansion thing. Keep your eyes open because there's a lot going out there, and it's easy to miss. Now, some supporters of it say of the culture of imperialism sometimes will say, especially if it's coming from the United States, there are certain themes, such with freedom and stuff like that, that may raise questions to people in other countries that might not be as free. So this can kind of give a rise to certain thoughts that people might not have had because they don't have access to it. So it is creating. They also say the popular culture creates a global village of we come together. We of understanding. Yeah, there's differences with language and other cultural aspects, but these things can help us come together with the expansion of these media companies and what they produce. Critics are going to say protests can be turned into products and they lose their bite. So what does that mean? That can mean these protests that are supposed to have some sort of meaning to them, and it could be something really bad and that needs to be addressed. And these things can the global entertainment can water it down. It can make it not seem as important. Also, the cultural dumping, native cultures of an area. I kind of talked about it before, but although they're being lost to history in some cases, some really great things. So we don't want to do that. We also don't want to disconnect people from where they come from. People have come all over the place, and they have all their traditions and their deeply held beliefs and their cultures and their food and their legends and whatever the case may be, which is all what makes us stronger by everyone sharing in that. It's important that what we create from the mass media, the Disneys, the Comcast, Universals, aren't disconnecting the people and having them who come from these cultures and come from these rich traditions, that they're forgetting it and they're getting disconnected and they're being lost to history because people aren't caring anymore. So that's a very important aspect too. All right, so it's a matter of when you're dealing with the media marketplace, concerns of that they're worried about the media worrying about just making sure they get the most money. Making sure they're able to market to advance so people can see their stuff. And what are the messages they're putting out? Are the messages good? Are they bringing up social questions that need to be brought up? Or are they just going and putting out lighthearted stuff? It might look real neat, but there's not a whole lot of substance to it. And a lot of times, yeah, that's the case. You'll find messages even in the big things, the big highly produced mega hits, but uh, not nearly as much as maybe we should. So that's the criticism that's out there. Also, public debate over certain issues, it makes it difficult when you talk and to talk about certain things because they're making so much money, so they have so much influence over so many things. Because let's really face facts: when you have that much money, you have influence, and they have lobbyists that deal for them and with them in many different governments across the country, including this one. You don't think that Disney has lobbying groups, or NBC Universal has lobbying groups, or News Corp has lobbying. They all have them. So this, if there's certain things that could be detrimental to these companies, um, and they use that influence, how does that hurt the everyday people in these different places all over the world? Another aspect: how much money is the corporate entity, and how much money, how much power is giving them over these people who make policy? So that makes it really important to understand too. And then also, um, local groups, consumer movements, working to challenge big media. How can these small little grassroots campaigns, who are worried about certain things and they want to be able to create things from just like, remember, Disney started off that way too. It was just Walt Disney. Can there be another Walt Disney? Will there ever be another Walt Disney? It makes it harder in some ways. I mean, the internet makes it easier, so we are lucky that way, to have that like we do now. How quickly that gets bought up by a bigger media conglomerate, that's the question. But at least we have something there that we've never had before, and that's all part of this. And also, sorry about that. Um, it's not quite over yet. There is also the thought of, think about, they all these mega media companies have news, TV, paper, internet kind of thing. How is that affected? And we all know they're affected. Every single one of them. And you can see in their coverage. You can see in what they put on. You can see what they highlight. And you can see in the coverage. It's like, oh, we like them. That News Corp is probably going to be pro-Trump, and NBC Universal with NBC and MSNBC is going to be anti-Trump. And then another, or more left or right. Is that what we need? Where is the independence? Where is, that's a big aspect of it. And then, are the people getting what they need to know how to make good decisions so they can have a free society and make correct decisions on who should be in different positions representing us? How does the media conglomerates, how they produce news, what they tell you in the different forms that are out there in broadcast or internet and all these things that they have, is it doing more bad than good? Are they just putting out an agenda and making sure you think a certain way? We saw that with Bernays. We saw that with PR and stuff like that, and that whole aspect of how they view government. And this is part of that. See, this is what I'm trying to get you to think. All right? I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to get you to think. All right? And this is what this is. Where with great power comes great responsibility. It's not just pressing some buttons and putting out some stuff. I don't care. I'm just doing my job. It's so much more than that, because there's so much more control. You got to learn it now, so when you do go out there, you can spread that word and get that mindset out there more, because we're it. We are the guardians of freedom. We are the ones who are supposed to keep track of things and keep people in power who are quote unquote in power. Um, and we're supposed to make sure they have limits, because if we're not doing it, then they don't have any limits, and then you're just yelling at each other and being nothing more than quote unquote. This isn't my thing. It's a term used from political people, useful idiots, quote unquote useful idiots, who are just yelling at each other, basically being, they're given a line to put out there, and I'm going to follow it loyally because that's what I'm supposed to do, and this is who the good people are, this is who the bad people are, and I have to just keep going on and doing this, and we're just getting caught up in much bigger things. We have to think, we have to be able to sift through that. That's why we're here. If we're going to create any form of media, be it PR, advertising, journalism, anything like that, or other stuff, we have to understand what we're doing. And part of the whole media economy, economics, what things own, who owns what, is part of that, understanding that. And it's on us, it's on you as future mass comm professionals to follow through with that. Don't just say, oh, that's not my job. It is your job. Too many people think like that. That's why we have the problems that we have. It's time to make a change with that. All right, that's it. Sorry I went back on the block on the end of thing. I probably got some of you all excited, but this is the last bit, and for chapter 13. Okay, so thanks a lot. Bye.